Let's build on the topic as we go forward because there are many layers to it. This year, we have already seen several attacks in Balochistan targeting civilians, law enforcement personnel, and state infrastructure. But the latest attack represents a shift in the scale and strategy. Some of the analysts believe that the expansion of the operation is unique because it has demonstrated that the terrorists' ability to extend the conflict to or near Punjab was very vivid. How do you reflect on it?
Thank you so much for having me. To be honest with you, as a student of terrorism, insurgency, and related themes and issues, I have learned these two basic principles on which more or less every violent movement revolves, and they are the principle of survivability and the principle of lethality. So the BLA is also growing on both the principles. If you see post 2002 onwards, they have survived. What they have done in their methodology, they have chosen their timings, they have given a periodic breaks in their attacks and attacking civilians, law enforcement agencies, so on and so forth. And with passage of time, gradually, they have increased their expression of lethality also. They have been lethal quite gradual. They started from intimidating non-Baloch populace in the province to targeted assassination, and then attacking the hard targets of law enforcement agencies. And recently, you might or anyone else would have observed, they have added these suicide bombers also. So they have radicalized their followers to an extent that they are able to produce the suicide bombers which were formally associated or at least were perceived or presumed that they are associated with the religious inspired violence. So that's how I see it, and in my opinion it's a long haul, so we need a long haul strategy to counter this threat. It's a very serious menace, and this menace needs very deep reflection on kinetic account, on non-kinetic account, and we need a holistic approach to respond to this challenge.
Yeah, I totally agree to this interplay of so many factors in this conflict, and there are external elements, there are internal elements. Talking of the internal elements, there is so much to be handled. But do you think this 2 decades old conflict has been here today so lethal, as you said yourself, because we have not been reflecting on it as a political problem?
There is a huge debate. I spoke on the floor of the House on this one. Unfortunately, in this country, when it comes to the religious-inspired violence, there is more or less consensus, even now amongst the religious political parties, that terrorism needs to be treated with the management of violence, that you need to manage violence. When you come to the TTP's narrative, or what these days they call it, fitnatul khariji, I don't know what would be its exact English translation, but someone which is outside the mainstream, that's how I would put it. So there are views which are quite clear on confronting and managing the violence on that account. But when it comes to the relatively secular, ethnic inspired violence, most of the intelligentsia in Pakistan, media personnel and others, they try to skew, in my opinion, that this violence can be curbed, can be managed, can be responded once it is taken as a political issue. Why do I don't agree with this assessment? Well, political association or political assessment or solution to the problem would have been, for instance, if there would be a demand, political demand of let's say, economic rights or political rights, where people would have been demanding, let's say, the quota for jobs or more participation in the parliamentary, different forums available under the Constitution. Or let's say there would have been a contest between the province and the federation over the allocation of economic resources. Well, none of them is in debate when it comes to the demands of these militant outfits. They have clearly illustrated their position that what they want to crave out a new geography and create a new nation state. And in order to achieve that goal, they believe in armed struggle. In order to give a moral boost to that claim and case, they have got a skewed historical version of the events, that there was an independent Balochistan state pre-1947, which obviously was not the case, and so on and so forth. And then they definitely add the so-called political, maybe at times underrepresentation, even the economic disparity. That could be a conducive environment to support this larger claim, but we have to understand that this is an ideological driven movement which believes in the separation, and that separation they believe they could achieve through armed struggle. Once you understand that, then either a political solution or a non-political solution, that can be easily debated.
Fair enough. So if it's a separatist movement, if I borrow your version, if it's a separatist movement, is this the reason that they would not agree to any project like CPEC over there, like targeting Chinese nationals for that matter? Anyone from outside Balochistan is not welcome there, and they are signaling the world that this area is not safe for investment. However, we are looking forward to big projects over there. For example, 15% equity in Reko by Saudi Arabia is anticipated. The Gawada port is the centerpiece of the CPEC $60 billion project. Then how are we looking at this economic sustainability over there?
Well, there is a short-term challenge, there is a mid-term challenge, and there is a long-term challenge. In the short term, I do agree that these militants, through their disruptive means, through the tools of violence, are sending the signal that the province of Balochistan is not safe and it is not conducive for the investors. But when it comes to the serious investors, what they are forgetting that the scale and the yardstick, if you compare it, let's say, with the African continent, there are many nations on West Africa, East Africa, where the level of violence and the structure of the state is relatively more weaker than what you observe in Balochistan or Pakistan. But we have seen that major corporations, they jump in, and even they see an opportunity in situation of crisis, and they take advantage of that, to the disadvantage of the local population and to the advantage of the corporate sector. So unfortunately, if they continue with this tendency, there may be a sort of temptation where we or anyone else would be tempted to go into projects which would be disadvantageous to the local population. So in that sense, these militants would be working against the core Baloch interest, and that, in my opinion, would again dwindle and plummet their support base, which in my assessment is not even at that large scale at this stage.